and a single heart, and faithfully serve in their several offices through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Most gracious God, author of all good things, we humbly beseech thee for the Parliament of Barbados, especially the Senate at this time assembled, that thou wouldst be pleased to direct and prosper all their counsels, to the advancement of thy glory, the good of thy church, the safety and honor and welfare of our people. All this we ask in the name of Jesus Christ, our most blessed Lord and Savior. Amen. Now let us say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. May the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen.
The Senate is now in session. Yes, and also you.
Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General. Announcements by Your Honor.
I am to advise that I've received communication from Senator Lynette Holder, Lisa Cummins, Damian Sands, and Monique Tate to the effect that they will not be able to be in attendance today. Most of them are abroad. I've also heard from Senators Tony Moore and Lucille Moore to the effect that they will be joining us later in the day. I'm to announce too that we have the minutes of May 31st meeting and June 21st, and also the 2nd of June minutes for those 3 days to be confirmed later.
May 31st and June 21st.
May the 31st and June the 21st.
May 31st.
And June the 21st.
To be confirmed.
To be confirmed, yes. But you're going to repeat it later.
Next item.
We need to call the item.
No announcements?
You want it to be the thing now? President, I beg that these minutes be now confirmed.
The question is that the minutes for the dates earlier indicated be now confirmed. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers.
Mr. President, I am commanded to lay the following documents. The Telecommunications Numbering Amendment Regulations 2019, Post Office Miscellaneous Services Amendment Regulations 2019, Duties, Taxes, and Other Payments Exemption, Barbados Children's Trust Incorp. Order 2019, Audited Financial Statements for the Board of Management of the Coleridge and Parry School for the financial years ended March the 31st, 2006 to March the 31st, 2011. Audited financial statements for the Board of Management of the Grantley Adams Memorial School for the financial years ended March the 31st, 2008 to March the 31st, 2010, and audited financial statements for the Board of Management of the LSU Secondary School for the financial years ended March 31st, 2009 to March the 31st, 2013.
Report from select committees.
Mr. President, it is with pleasure that I beg to lay the report of the Joint Select Committee on Data Protection, which concluded its work on July 8th with submissions from about 11 different submissions, and the 11-member Joint Select Committee of both houses did an excellent job at looking at these provisions in total. And I now therefore beg to lay this report.
Questions to ministers? Request for leave to move the adjournment of the Senate on matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers or parliamentary secretaries. Personal explanations. Motions relating to the business or sitting of the Senate are moved by a minister.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the suspension of standing orders 22-1 and 45-2 for the remainder of today's sitting.
Standing orders 22-1 and 45-2 be suspended for the balance of today's sitting. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice of the Customs Amendment Number 3 Bill 2019 and also the Tourism Levy Bill 2019. I also beg to move the first reading of the Securities Amendment and Validation of Fees Bill 2019, the Customs Amendment Number 3 Bill 2019, and the Tourism Levy Bill 2019.
All of them should be given in one or one after one.
The two that he gave him was the second reading of
The first reading of the
Customs.
Securities Amendment. Now, the question, what I was asking you is whether I should ask for the first reading of all three together. Which one? The question is that the following bills be now read a first time. The amendment to the Utilities Act, the
Number 3, Customs.
the Customs Amendment Number 3 Bill 2019,
And the Tourism Levy.
and the Tourism Levy Bill 2019. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I merely rise this morning to move the reading of the second reading of this bill, which was discussed in this honorable chamber at length by honorable members. And I now propose to move that it be now read a second time.
The question is that the bill currently under consideration be now read a second time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg that Your Honor do not leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. Utility regulation.
The Senate is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that, first of all, I must state that there is an amendment to in the title. It says, an act to amend the Utilities Regulations Act. Cap 2 through 82, regulations has to be included. And also in clause 1 under the short titled, this act may be cited as the Utilities Regulations Act. Act 2019. I beg to move that clause 1 stand part as amended.
The question is that clause 1 stand part as amended, which is to include regulations. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
Chairman? Sir, when I spoke on this matter, I thought people would have had second thoughts on it. This amendment here is conflicting with same section 37 of the current legislation. It gives the minister power under certain circumstances. This one gives the minister carte blanche. I don't know if this is what the government want to do, but they have not repealed 37.3. 37.3 says that the minister, I'm not reading it, it says that basically the minister has the power to do this after advice or after he's been informed by either the Fair Trading Commission or he is, or that the utility service is competitive. Those were the requirements. This one says that the minister can do whatever he likes. This gives the minister too much power. This is power that one body should not have. The power should remain. So are we repealing 37.3? Because these two things speak against the next. 3 and 4, the new 4.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
The question is that clause 2 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee. All honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the bill under consideration be now read a third time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited as the Utilities Regulations Act, Amendment Act 2019.
Question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be so cited. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. We think the ayes have it.
Divide.
The division has been called for.
Too late shall be your pride.
Jesus of Nazareth.
Too late
our
shall be
Father.
your pride. In committee, now he can vote. Mass is never your subject.
You mustn't teach him, man. You will never forget.
You could vote for this now.
Yes. Well, division has been called for, and now the clerk will poll each individual member.
Take the question again. The last statement.
What division was called for?
The question was that it will now be moved.
Yes, sir. It was last put to the Senate that this bill under consideration be now passed and be so cited, and a divide is being called for, a division is being called for. Will the clerk now poll each individual senator separately?
Senator, Mr. Walker,
Aye.
Senator Ms. McCartney,
Aye.
Senator Dr. Springer,
Aye.
Senator Grant,
Aye.
Senator Dr. Haynes,
Aye.
Senator Adams, Senator Franklin,
No.
Senator Ms. Frakes,
No.
His Honor Senator Greenwich,
Aye.
Senator Honourable Ellie Nurse,
Aye.
Senator Boyce,
Aye.
Senator Miss Wiggins,
Aye.
Senator Reverend Rogers.
Aye.
Eleven senators.
Mr. President, 11 honorable senators voted aye. 2 honorable senators voted no.
The clerk has reported the division that was called for, and 11 honorable senators voted aye, and only 2 honorable senators voted no. The bill is therefore now passed. And will be cited as indicated. It will be so cited.
House because there's an amendment.
Pardon?
And it has to be sent to the House. It has to be sent to the House. It's been amended, so it has to go to the House. Yeah, the message has, so it was passed as amended.
And the bill has been amended here in the Senate, and to that extent, it has to go back to the House.
It gives the minister too much power.
Mr. President, order number 9, which stands in the name of the Honorable Leader of the Senate and which has been assigned to Senator Ms. McConney, to move the second reading of the Securities Amendment and Validation of Fees Bill 2019.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to introduce the Securities Amendment and Validation of Fees Bill 2019. This is a bill that seeks to validate the charging and collection of fees by the Financial Services Commission of certain annual registration fees that are payable to the FSA by the Barbados Stock Exchange. And this would have been from the period starting January 1, 2016. Now, the Securities Amendment Regulations 2018, they were prepared to give effect to the proposed new fee structure for the Barbados Stock Exchange, while the Securities Validation of Fees Bill 2018 was prepared to amend the Securities Act, Cap 318A, and that would be to validate the Financial Services Commission charging and collecting the new fees on the Barbados Stock Exchange starting from January 1st, 2016. Now, Mr. President, the regulations which amended the first schedule to the Principal Act, they were made in February of 2018, and they were published in the Official Gazette on February 19th, 2018. Now, these regulations had to be made before the Securities Validation of Fees Bill could be passed in the Parliament. However, there was, owing to the dissolution of the 2013-2018 Parliament, that was done on March 5th, 2018, the Securities Validation of Fees Bill could not be passed in Parliament. So when this new administration took over, the Chief Parliamentary Council was asked to change the date on the Securities Validation of Fees Bill to reflect the current date. And so, Mr. President, this is a simple amendment to bring this bill into current to the current state. And it is, I now beg that this bill be read a second time.
Question is that the securities
Mr. Chairman, guys have it already. We can have, he can do it on the third reading or whatever you want to go along, but you missed the shit.
Mr. President, I now beg that you leave the chair and the Honourable Senate resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate for the further consideration in detail of the bill under discussion. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Me take the ayes have it, and the Senate is now in committee.
This has two clauses. So you want to speak anything?
Yeah, he can speak. The Senate is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
Mr. Chairman, or Deputy President, I just have a few words I wanted to say. First, I want to apologize to Senator Franklin for not being fast enough to get on his boat there. But it's important that democracy allows everybody to be heard, and it's a bit of a shame you are a stickler on that point. But there it is. This bill, Securities Amendment and Validation of Fees bill, really speaks to the parent bill, which is the Securities Act, Cap 318A, and the specific amendment, notwithstanding the validations of fees part, concerns Part 6, which is called disbursements. That's just another way of talking about offers to buy and sell securities. I think it is entirely uncontroversial, but it raises another broader issue with this type of legislation that touches finance, access to finance, and financial inclusion. And specifically, we have to be very careful when we're looking at this kind of legislation to make sure that we don't encumber actors in the financial space with a burden of regulation that's really onerous. And this is not to say I'm going to speak on behalf of capital. This concerns everybody, all citizens. What struck me when I was preparing for this bill is that Section 69, where we're proposing to put these amendments, already contains about 30 exemptions of one type or another to other parts of the Act itself, specifically Sections 63, 64, and 65. Now, legislation, to my mind, is a living entity. It's something that has to reflect changes and developments in society, be they economic, technological, social, or indeed political. So that in itself is not a bad thing. But what it really speaks to is the necessity to balance proscription, that is what is allowed, against enabling. This kind of legislation, especially in the area of finance, really has to make sure it does not hamstring society, be it ordinary citizens or businesses. And I think in the past, in this balance between what is prescribed and what is enabled, we've frequently erred on the side of proscription. And
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, the Honourable Senator is out of order. This is a committee debate now. This is a committee. Clause 1 says, this act may be cited as the Securities Amendment and Validation of Fees Act 2019. That's what he's speaking to. He has to speak to that. He is giving a second reading speech. He's out of order.
Proceed, Senator Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. I'm somewhat surprised, given the latitude Senator Franklin has enjoyed in the past, that he would really rise on such a point of order, especially as I have not yet been given the chance to expose completely the presentation that I'm delivering. Well, the title includes the word amendments, and I'm speaking to the amendments. But I shall proceed as instructed. Now, these kind of amendments, the balancing of what is prescription and what is enabled, it is really crucial for us to understand and grasp that. Do you wish to make another point of order?
Proceed, Senator Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Coming down here at about 2011, the radio was on, and I just going to use this as an allegory for the importance of balancing what is enabling against what is forbidden. And there was a caller to 101.7 FM, and his concern was adultery and women and the punishment that women who commit adultery should have. And it was very Old Testament. He surprised me because he got to this point where he said, you know, he's actually against the stoning of women for adultery. And I did wonder where he was going, because I think Old Testament views are pretty prevalent. But in fact, his concern was not that a woman would be stoned to death. It was that there are two people involved.
That's
Why is it only her who should be stoned to death? Mm-hmm. So he was all about fairness, but he also was not about proportionality in his story. And this is what this kind of legislation has to take into account. Not only the balance of what the legislation is trying to do, but is it proportionate? Mr. Deputy President, I had an opportunity early this month to go and visit a factory in Germany that makes money, serious money. When I say that it makes money, I mean it actually prints physical banknotes. Very impressive place. The main hall held this piece of equipment. It was 100 meters long, and it used 30 tons of cotton a day to make the security paper that the firm would subsequently
30 pounds of cotton? 30 pounds of
cotton.
cotton.
Not pulp. And I must say, when that information was conveyed to me, the 30 pounds of cotton, I did think back to the previous administration's money printing. And it crossed my mind, if they had involved Sea Island cotton, we might not be left just with debt and difficulty, but I digress. The point here was there was a firm that was producing cash, and cash is the ultimate form of accessibility. Now, this type of legislation, I've said it, speaks to financing, access to financing, financial inclusion. When it comes to small and medium-sized enterprises governed by the legislation as it currently stands, and certain other cultural tendencies in this country, we know that they cannot easily finance themselves through credit or equity, which are the two traditional ways to achieve growth. It's really important that legislation like this and the related acts on our books address this kind of issue, and it is, again, it's all about the balance between what is proscribed and what is enabling, and indeed the proportionality of how it's dealt with, how it's implemented. I want to give a couple of examples. When it comes to credit, on the cultural side, we know that in this country, banks will tend to lend in a very highly collateralized way. That is to say, they don't like to take a lot of risk. They know that they want to get their money back. So straight away, that eliminates a lot of entrepreneurs from that source of access to finance. Against that, the banks, the lenders themselves, have a very heavy burden governed by this kind of legislation, financial legislation around KYC and AML. And often they go well beyond statute to such a degree that it punishes access to finance by small and medium-sized enterprises. And indeed, yesterday I found out firsthand that one bank now wants to charge $1,000 to small and medium-sized enterprise companies approaching them to embark on a relationship with them, and they want that money simply to process the KYC and AML requirements that they're sitting on. Now, the legislation plays a part in setting this up. The proportionality, the balance is all wrong. How can it be that we set up a system where that kind of regulation is now treated as a revenue stream by a bank? Is it a disincentive to entrepreneurs to come forward and approach banks? So between the heavy collateralization and the way banks are treating the legislation around KYC and AML, there's a problem for small and medium-sized enterprises trying to secure cash. Now, this bill talks a lot about securities and equity. On the equity side, if you're a small and medium-sized enterprise, it seems that that would be a good way also to raise funds. Entrepreneurship is thriving in this country, but you wouldn't know it when you look at the stock exchanges. Now, when I was much younger, in my teens, I think there were around 30 companies quoted on the local exchange. Now it's about 12 if you exclude mutual funds. How does that compare to places like Trinidad and Jamaica? Well, Trinidad has about 40 listings and Jamaica about 81. And we moan and we complain about countries coming in here and taking over concessions. This is in the paper recently, or Trinidadian companies coming in here and buying up our assets. They know a good thing when they see it. I put it to you that this thriving entrepreneurial sector we have, and I'll cite a couple of figures in a moment, if they had access to finance in the same way that some of our neighbors do, that we would also be investing overseas, in Guyana, in Trinidad, and Jamaica. And there's a line from Julius Caesar: the fault is not in the stars, dear Brutus, it's in ourselves. This legislation and associated legislation really has to deal with that. When I say that entrepreneurship is thriving in this country, I want to cite an IMF paper. I just have to check the title because the IMF are pretty good at giving non-poetic titles to their papers. So this one is called A Tax Reform Roadmap for Simplicity and Revenue Buoyancy. Easy to remember. 2014 is when it came out. And in that paper, there's a very neat decomposition of the private sector companies in Barbados. And there are a lot of them, but the heart of our private sector, small and medium-sized enterprises, there are 1,000 firms that turn over between $1 million Barbados dollars and 20 million Barbados dollars. 1,000 firms, and yet there are only 12 on the stock exchange. Now, alongside this, we know that the domestic savings sitting in banks are $9–10 billion. Now, there's a clear disconnect. Why is it we cannot simplify and make more elegant our legislation to encourage a joining up of all these elements? It's absolutely critical. Mr. Deputy Speaker, President, excuse me, I think legislation is a form of social engineering. Where we are and where we want to be is purely, or not purely, but to a very large extent, a function of what we have on our statute books. Anything that we amend that brings a greater balance to this idea of prescription against enabling has got my favor. There is no way that we should be stoning our small and medium-sized enterprises. And this legislation, I think, goes a small way to making sure that we don't. And I hope that it continues with other bills that are brought before us. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Senator Franklin.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, this piece of legislation speaks to government collecting people's money without lawful authority and trying to cover their tracks and make right what was done wrong. What they should really do is give back people the money. But that's not what he got up. What he got up about is the abuse of this house. You know, we have to do things right. We are being seen all over the world. My son watches this thing in New York. So we become laughing stock of the world when we behave as we did just now. Right? I am truly offended by what has happened just now. When second reading speech that Senator Adams gave just now, I keep telling this parliament that we must learn our craft. We must do the right thing because people are watching. When you behave like this, you abuse the powers that you have, even though this is slight. But this is the thin end of the wedge. That debate, that speech, should only address the name of the act, or the name of the bill. We had a second reading speech, and nobody saw it fit to say, well, look, we could even slide this down and do it in the, under clause 2, when we call clause 2, because either we don't know what we are doing, and I think that is not the case, or that we have the power and we are abusing it.
Clause, start the clause.
Chairman, I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. All honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
The question is that clause 2 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
The question is that clause 3 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you now report to His Honor the President the passing of 1 bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the President the passing of 1 bill in committee. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be now read a 3rd time.
Question is that the bill under consideration be now read a 3rd time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill do not pass and be cited as a Securities Amendment and Validation of Fees Act 2019.
The question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be so cited. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The bill is now passed and will be so cited.
It was a cognate debate. This. So we have to do this second reading of this.
Second reading of.
Order number 3, sir.
1 and 3.
In the name of the Honourable Leader of the Senate, to resume the debate on the second reading of the Barbados Water Authority Validation of Water and Sewage Rates Bill 2019.
Mr. President, as I rise to speak briefly on this bill, honorable members will record that it was done as a cognate debate, that and the first item that we dealt with today, it was done as a cognate debate, and I therefore beg to move the second reading of the Barbados Water Authority Validation of Water and Sewage Rate Bill 2019.
The question is that the bill presently under consideration be now read a second time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I now beg to move that your honor do not leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate for the detailed consideration of the bill under consideration in committee. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it and we are now in committee.
The Senate is now in committee.
Clause 1.
Chairman, I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
The question is that clause 1 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
The question is that clause 2 stand part. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the President the passing of one bill in committee. Honorable senators in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported to me the passage of the bill under consideration in committee.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
Question is that the bill currently under consideration be now read a third time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and be cited as the Barbados Water Authority Validation of Water and Sewage Rates Bill 2019.
Question is that the bill under consideration do now pass and be so cited. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. The bill has now been passed and will be so cited. Next thing up.
Order number 7, sir. In the name of the Honourable Leader of the Senate, to move the passing of a resolution that Parliament of Barbados take note of the final report of the National Cruise Development Commission.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I almost was tempted to say I rise feeling exhausted to speak, to lead off in this resolution, but a very important one, the work of the National Cruise Development Commission in putting together a final report, which I believe that all members have seen, all honorable members would have read and have perhaps been in praise of this final report. I think all honorable members recognize the importance of tourism to Barbados, and especially so the importance of the cruise industry. Over the years, Barbados has been seeing a significant increase in the number of persons who come in here utilizing cruise liners, be it in terms of transit, those that come during the day, or more popularly now in terms of Barbados, for the purposes of home porting. And globally, cruise tourism has taken off. We have an expert here on this side, not me, Mr. President, who would I'm sure tell you of the figures of the vast increase in numbers and the rate of growth of the cruise industry. The cruise industry. And I'm told that in the year 1980, there were just about 1.4 million tourists, people using cruise liners globally, and now it's more like 26 million. And over the years, Barbados has been holding its own in this regard. We have been seeing our increases in this area. We've noted over the past few years that in terms of the transit tourist cruise, we've seen a decrease in that, where we are seeing a concomitant and reasonable growth in terms of those who are utilizing home porting, where some of them stay on for a day or two before or after, and encourages persons to come back to the country again, having spent more time here. But in spite of this, there are some worrying trends which we notice, and sometimes for the benefit of my colleague on the other side, who sometimes wears a color that is somewhat different from mine, it is sometimes useful to be in opposition. And it allows you to assess, to look at the situation, to do situation analysis, in a better position to read and get information, objective information, rather binding to what you're told by your peers or what you hear in your own ears that you want to hear. And it is from this regard that while in opposition, we took the opportunity to seriously look at the whole issue of tourism in terms of Barbados, and especially cruise tourism, and recognize some of the issues which we were faced with in Barbados, but were not necessarily paying enough attention to. In terms of guest spend and guest satisfaction, we noticed in surveys that there seemed to be a decline in satisfaction by cruise ship guests in coming to Barbados. They certainly weren't spending on shore as much as we would like them to spend at that time. And overall, there seemed to be a downward trajectory in terms of what was happening in that regard. Some of them were reporting a decrease in the consumer interest in Barbados, and that our product offering was, to use not a popular word, but still, there's not much excitement in terms of some of the things that were being offered in Barbados, and certainly there wasn't the diversification that we thought was necessary. We therefore, as a government, thought that it was essential that this matter of cruise tourism and the seemingly decline in popularity in terms of Barbados needed to be addressed, and it was one of our mission critical plans. And so the National Cruise Development Commission was established by Cabinet in August last year. The purpose of the commission was to essentially stimulate national attention within Barbados and an interest in the development of this sector. Obviously, to do an assessment, in-depth assessment and analysis of the situation, and look at how we could motivate and create active participation and investment of small and medium-sized enterprises in the further development and diversification of our local cruise sector. The commission was also to look at opportunities for expanding economic benefits and certainly to recommend short-term initiatives. For example, the activities that now occur on Friday evenings, which I'm sure my colleague will speak more about later. This is one of the immediate results of this committee, identifying additional areas. The committee, as the document that was distributed indicates, highlights the names of the persons who served on the committee. Sorry. And it was chaired by Sir Errol Humphrey, who I think all honorable members know him in terms of tourism, in terms of his vast knowledge and experience. The report, as presented, is divided into 8 sections and covers several areas. It looked at an analysis of the tourism industry, and it looked at the global trends and spoke in terms of the large numbers that are visiting Barbados, as I mentioned earlier, the increasing number of tourists and what was happening globally. Not to be, obviously to be noted that in terms of Barbados and the Caribbean, that this region remained the most popular destination for cruise liners globally, capturing over 34% of the traffic, so to speak. As I said, Caribbean and Latin America. At present, most of the tourists come from the most popular are North Americans, but there's seemingly a trend in terms of Europeans of a different socioeconomic group in terms of going into taking cruises and longer cruises, especially those from the UK tend to do 2-week cruises as opposed to the North Americans who do 1 week, 5 days, weekend cruises. The Europeans who are now also into this tend to pay longer visits to this region. The report also looked at the infrastructure within Barbados in order to operate cruise tourism at an optimal level. It most definitely spoke about the port and the deficiencies at the port. And I think we scored out of 34 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, which we surveyed. In terms of the welcome at the port of entry, I think we were at number 29. So it is definitely an area where we have to work on. And of course, in terms of the cruise infrastructure. And certainly those of you who read the report would see that there's indication that there should be a massive expansion or indeed a cruise ship facility. And I know that over the last, I believe it is about over 10 years now, or 15 years, we've been hearing about the need for a new cruise terminal. And I sincerely hope that this will not be too far in the distant future, too far in the future. Of course, it speaks to the road infrastructure and the physical environment. And it speaks also of issues in terms of environmental, where you go to visit places of interest and the directions are covered in bush and debris and stuff like this that we need to address. It looked at Pelican Craft Center and the need for that to be, to put it mildly, refurbished, but obviously to be given a new lease on life, and that there was need for improvements at Oyston. All in all, the report spoke to those, was focusing on those areas. It said that there should be some strategic objectives to be achieved over the next 6 years in Barbados. And most definitely they started in terms of the number of cruise passengers, which we should look at, that we should aim for a 30% increase over the next 6-year period, that we should look at increasing the number of passengers who home port in Barbados now is just about 149,000, and we should look to get this up to about 185 to 190,000 in the next 6 years. And certainly to see an increase in those persons who spend additional time in Barbados, either before they go on a cruise or after, to move it from 7%, where it is now, to 13%. They said that we need to look at new and reimagined attractions in Barbados, or visitor experiences. And we should look at introducing these over the next 6 years. And that we should seek to move the average spend of a cruise passenger, the ones who are just on transit, from $64 US per passenger now to $100 by then, and certainly increase the average spend for the home porting cruise passenger from where it is now, $144.78, to somewhere around $235 in the next 6 years. It also speaks to the issue of where we are in terms of satisfaction of cruise passengers in terms of shopping. We are now 20 out of 36 countries, out of 36 countries, and we certainly need to aim to be within the first 12 over the next 6 years. It spoke, as I said earlier, in terms of the need to enhance the port experience at the Barbados port, the need for us to look at training in terms of the persons who work in various areas in the port, the general appearance and the need for upliftment, and in terms of the shopping and the whole issue in terms of the port facilities. They thought that we should also expedite the plans to do pilot projects for berthing of cruise ships on the West Coast. I mentioned the need for improvement on our roads. They spoke about Bridgetown and the garrison and the need to promote the historic aspects of Bridgetown and the restoration of historic buildings within Bridgetown. They spoke in terms of the need for the smart city that we've been speaking about, and in terms of Wi-Fi access and all of that throughout Bridgetown. And the possibility in the future, this is not initial, but in terms of long-term, of a traffic-free Broad Street and obviously water taxis and more visitor centers. In terms of Bridgetown, though, they spoke specifically, and one of the recommend is in terms of the facilities in Bridgetown, in terms of public toilet facilities and the lack of that, and the appearance of Bridgetown, especially at night, and the need for us to look at addressing that matter in terms of attracting people to Bridgetown in the evening. I believe the Ministry of Tourism has embarked, as I mentioned earlier, already in terms of the utilization of the Pelican Village area on Friday nights, but they felt that that needed to be almost completely refurbished. They need to look at better advertising, to look at open market facilities there, to look at customer experiences. In terms of the Bridgetown, as I said, they were concerned about the appearance. They were concerned about the fish market conditions, and that needed to be improved. They spoke about the need for a yacht marina in Bridgetown, in the Bridgetown area. The need to reclaim the primary real estate, which is now in parking lots, and we all know that there's a plan for this in terms of the government going forward. And I mentioned the historic buildings. Oystins, they mentioned issues that I know are familiar to many of us, a need for the upgrading of facilities, the stagnant pool of water, and how the craft vendors are treated there. So the commission report gives you an overall picture, not only in terms of specific areas related to tourism, but obviously in terms of enhancing and in terms of certain infrastructure development, be it development of the port, Pelican Village, the roads, the appearance of Bridgetown. That comes to the benefit of all Barbadians, but at the same time would encourage and improve our appearance and our allure to these cruise line passengers. So all in all, as I said, it is quite extensive, and it speaks in detail to how we can improve the situation in terms of Barbados, making it more popular and turning the trends in terms of the declining popularity of Barbados to make it much more popular in the realms of tourists, certainly within this region. And having said that, I'm going to simply suggest and move that it be adopted and noted by this Honourable Chamber, and that it is certainly, for those who have not read it, it is something that I would encourage them to read and see it as a plan in terms of developing Barbados. I thank you, Mr. President.
Is Senator Springer, the next speaker. Yeah, they agreed that he should come before Rudy, and he agreed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to add my voice in support of this resolution. I certainly would not delay this chamber. But I just wanted to make a suggestion based on my past experience as a heritage student. And when I did my program, one of the things that I looked at was this notion of blind tourism. And I read here in the blind tourism, in the report that about the move to reimagine Bridgetown. And I'm inspired by what I saw some months ago. I mean, a few years ago, I was coming around by Pelican Village, and I saw what looked to me like 4 blind tourists walking back to the ship. 4 blind tourists on the way back to the ship. And I thought to myself that perhaps this may very well be a niche that many persons in Barbados have not explored. And that's really the idea of, with any great detail, certainly in the past. Because in Barbados, we have a lot to offer a person who is visually impaired. There are a number of monuments in the city that they could be guided tours where they can go and they can touch, they can feel, they can hear the history of these monuments. For example, I would have done a short video where persons would go to the monument in the city and they would touch the names of persons. I personally would have touched and feel for names of, maybe the names of your ancestors. Which persons coming from England with names like mine, like Springer and Walcott and Grant, and they would touch the monument and feel the name of the persons who would have probably died in the war. So these are just things that persons can do. Also, we have some old brickwork. A lot of that brickwork has been, I saw the area being renovated, but some brickwork that persons can also have the opportunity to touch and feel and hear the story of Bridgetown. So things, yes, you may not have the power of sight, you may not be able to the sense of sight, but you can still get a picture in your mind if the guide is talented enough or good enough to explain to you what is happening around you. And you find that these persons who are visually impaired, they have a stronger sense of smell and hearing in terms of sound and taste. So we can also exploit those 3 areas as well. And sometimes it does not necessarily have to be the most pleasant smells. So the unpleasant ones, they tell a story as well. So you can go into parts of Bridgetown and you can give, you can tell a story and you can have the evidence of the various odors, whether it be the smell of flowers or the smell of something else less pleasant. But that will also help give a more meaningful experience to that person who's visually impaired to get a sense of what life in Barbados might have been 100 years ago or what life in Barbados is today. Understand? Because these are things that I have seen happen in the past, and I've seen the excitement on persons who would have been part of these tours. Then there's also what is referred in some parts as dark tourism, but I would not necessarily refer to it as that here, but where persons go into graveyards and they can touch the tombstones and they can hear the history of the tombstones. If you were to go into the Jewish, over by the Jewish synagogue and go into the graveyard, you can learn about the history of the Jewish migration to Barbados just by touching those tombstones over there. And you get a sense of some of the persons who came here, some of the names. People are very fascinated. If you look at Ancestry.com, the ads, people are fascinated to find that persons who carry their name, perhaps their ancestors were around 300 and 400 years doing great things here in the Caribbean. These are areas that we can tap into. You know, persons can touch those tombstones and they will see that this person will have lived between 1700 and this or 1800 that, and they can get a little sense of their contribution. And they can feel a connection to the island because of the names and so on and so forth. So these are just some of the things that we can cater to in terms of blind tourism. And then for buildings, historic buildings like this one that we are in right now, Mr. President, we can have miniatures created so that we can give the story of Parliament, but you can also have a miniature Parliament building that the persons can touch and feel and get a sense of the architecture. You know, or even buy, of course, even buy, yes, and you can get a sense of how the building looks and the various types of architecture involved, because that's another story we can tell. We have architecture in Barbados that is in some cases unique to Barbados, but in some cases very similar to what exists in Europe. And that also has its story that we can share with persons visiting this island. So, and those are just a brief of what we can do if we are creative enough with our product, if we are creative enough in terms of using everything, whether it's our food. Persons come, they taste the various spices or flavors that we have here in Barbados, could become part of that person's experience, not just seeing the blue sea or the blue sky or the sun or what have you. They can have a more wholesome experience by having all of their senses engaged. And I'm saying a person coming off a cruise ship, to spend a few hours in Barbados, a person who's visually impaired, these are some of the things that they can enjoy. Also, you can have your guided tour. I heard mention of Smart City, where persons who are visually impaired should be able to walk up to certain checkpoints, press a button, and get a narrative of the history of Bridgetown. So a story of the history of Bridgetown. These are things that we can look at in this country, so we can a visually impaired person can feel more welcome, because they have money too, you know. They have money, they have spending power, and they want to enjoy themselves in the same way that us persons who can see enjoy ourselves. I saw a documentary it would have been last week, where a man left and he visited a remote part of Africa. He was blind, he was visually impaired, and he left England and went to Africa to get a sense of what of Africa, of course, of how people there live. Of course, he couldn't see anything, but he could smell, he could feel, you know, he could hear things. He heard the accent, the language, and all these things are fascinating to persons coming in from outside. So I'm just saying that it's a novel area, perhaps. It might have been discussed. I didn't get the chance to read the entire document. It might have been discussed at some point. But I would want to see Barbados go in a direction where we welcome persons, we encourage persons, visually impaired persons to our soil, to our shores, and we have a product that will cater to those persons. And these are just some of the things that I mentioned. I'm sure there are other things that blind people can enjoy, visually impaired persons can enjoy, if we put in the effort and we put in the work, and we put our heads together, we come up with more things that they can enjoy and have a more meaningful experience. And we cater to not only able-bodied persons, but those persons from the disabled community who still have money to spend, who have time to, who have like that free time for leisure and for enjoyment, and encourage them to come to Barbados. And perhaps with that we can perhaps regain our lead. Barbados has been a leader in a lot of things, especially in the Eastern Caribbean, and certainly in tourism. And we could regain our lead if we could just open up our markets to a different group of persons who are not being catered to at this moment. And with those few words, Mr. President, I just want to reiterate my support for the resolution, and I'm obliged to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm extremely happy to be able to support this resolution. I want at the very start to recognize the important work that the members of the Commission have engaged in, and to commend them on the discussions which they have had with respect to this very important segment of tourism. Of course, a lot of what is referenced in this report, Mr. President, also speak to issues that impact broadly on tourism and impact on long stay arrivals as well. Matters relating to the infrastructural development, matters relating to enhancing of oistins and reference to Pelican Village as well. And I think they have done some good and significant work, and we need to commend them. I want as well to just make a brief reference to what my colleague senator spoke about with respect to visits to graveyards, and as he spoke to various niche areas that we could look at. Of course, he is speaking to genealogy tourism. That is where visitors come to a destination and they seek to engage in activities relating to finding out a bit about their ancestry, a bit about the history. And I believe that I would have informed this honorable chamber before that there are many cruise passengers that come to Barbados and make their way to Westbury Cemetery. And they do that to follow up on some of their history. And only recently, Mr. President, I would have spoken to officials at the Sanitation Service Authority, because we do have some preliminary work which was undertaken in that regard, where there is the ability to identify various grave sites. And I think it is important for us to be able to capitalize on that to enhance the overall experience. Because as we speak to cruise tourism and as we speak to tourism generally, it is really, sir, about enhancing the tourism experience that our visitors have when they come to Barbados as a destination. Of course, sir, visitors come here with a certain expectation. And what we must always seek to do is to enhance our offerings in such a way that we exceed the expectation which our visitors have. As it relates to cruise, sir, the cruise ships provide a number of surveys. What the cruise ships do is that they survey their passengers and they ask them questions in relation to the experience. They ask them questions in relation to the product offering. Those surveys are shared with the Bridgetown Port, the Barbados Port Inc. I believe they're also shared with the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. And it gives an outline of the overall experience of the cruise passenger. And I think it is something that the Cruise Commission would have looked at as well, and the intention certainly would be, and I believe the leader of government business made reference to it, the intention certainly would be to ensure that we are able to improve in the overall experience that we have, the visitors have. Of course, sir, at present, there are some surveys that are undertaken by the Caribbean Tourism Organization. And those surveys speak to issues of overall visitor spend. But I think it is also important for us to engage in some research work which reflects on what it is our visitors would like and what it is our visitors want to experience when they come to Barbados as a tourism destination. Of course, Mr. President, we are very aware that a lot of visitors are looking for experiences that are real, experiences that are authentic. And we have to ensure, therefore, that in our product offering, we have to ensure that in the development of our infrastructure, with respect also to the development of our attractions, that we do it in a manner, Mr. President, that reflects what is truly Bajan. The reality is that you know, we don't want to create a destination which is one that does not reflect what Barbados truly is about. And we have to ensure that we are able to translate in the visitor experience the Bajan element, whether we are speaking about the cuisine, whether we are speaking about the culture. So, Mr. President, when I participate in presentations to tour operators and I speak to travel agents, I have my nice slides, yes, that I put up, and I have photos of pudding and sauce. I have photos of cuckoo and flying fish. Of course, I have photos as well of the good liquid refreshment which would have been first refined here in terms of our Bajan rum. But the point that I'm making, sir, is that the Barbadian element has to be reflected in the overall visitor experience that is being obtained by our visitors. That means, Mr. President, that there also needs to be improvement in our service levels. You know, sir, there was a time when in tourism the phrase was used, tourism is our business. Let's play our part. And I've said before that when visitors come to Barbados, what we are doing is that we are inviting them into our homes. And what we must do is that we must ensure that we provide for them the very best. I've related before, Mr. President, the fact that when I was a young boy, at my grandparents, my maternal grandparents' house, and anyone was coming over as a visitor, you brought out the best things. You know, there were some plates, sir, and some knife and forks and things that you can regularly use. But when a visitor or somebody was coming from overseas, or somebody even in Barbados who didn't visit often was coming over, you brought out your very best. And you had to dress too, sir, in your best. And the reality is that when we encourage visitors to come to Barbados, what we are doing is that we are inviting them into our homes. And we have to ensure that all of us seek to provide a good and a wonderful experience for our visitors. There are certain realities, Mr. President, which we face. Nobody, sir, owes us anything. We have to ensure that we take the necessary actions to exploit the opportunities that exist and that are available to us. And not, sir, to stray too much, but you know, recently I was speaking with someone who works quite a bit in places like Dubai and Maldives. And that person indicated to me that they took a flight, 350 pounds from London, and they went to Dubai. Sir, the transportation, the hours are pretty much the same, but the availability of the product in Dubai is very significant. And I've said before, sir, that we are not simply competing with a St. Lucia or St. Kitts or a Jamaica. The reality is, sir, that we are competing with the entire world. And therefore, we have to ensure that we set our standards at a world-class level. We have to ensure, sir, that all of us recognize that we are in this together, and that to ensure we create the best opportunities for future generations, that we do what is right. And therefore, sir, I am, through you, asking Barbadians to come on board, asking Barbadians to ensure that we create an environment which is pleasing, an environment which is enjoying, an environment where people would constantly want to come back to Barbados as a destination. And the reality is for us, sir, that our future really depends on the manner in which we interact with our visitors, but also how we interact with ourselves. Because I have to tell you, Mr. President, that I do not simply believe in facilitating measures to make the overall experience good for visitors, I think we also have to ensure that Barbadians are able to enjoy this very important industry as well. So that when you talk about enhancing oistins, it is not simply being enhanced for visitors, it is being enhanced for the enjoyment of Barbadians as well. But as I speak to the issue, sir, of the enhancing of service levels, I'm very aware that at the Barbados Port Inc., they have recently created a marketing and cruise operations department. And that department is looking at all aspects of the cruise development and looking to see how they can enhance the service levels. Of course, sir, the services in the Bridgetown Port and the services at the airport, because I'm going to speak to the airport a little later, because the airport does relate as well to cruise tourism in terms of facilitating cruise and stay and in terms of facilitating home porting. But there are other agencies as well, sir, that function in the port. And I believe it is important for us to enhance our overall service levels. Indeed, sir, and I have to say that as government seeks to ensure that it properly executes the BERT program, I think both the public and the private sector have to maybe in a way have somewhat of a paradigm shift. We can no longer, sir, have a situation where we are not producing. We can no longer have a situation where the can is to some extent kicked down the road. We have to, all of us, recognize that there's a role for us to play in the upliftment and the development of Barbados and ensuring that there's continued growth. And all of us, sir, have to commit to that task. So that while we speak about the Barbados Port Inc. having a marketing and cruise operations department, and while they focus on the enhancing of service levels, it is also important that all of the other entities operating in the port are also engaging in the enhancement of service levels as well. Mr. President, this report speaks to the upgrade in some physical plans. And, you know, sir, one of the challenges identified, and I believe that it is in the executive summary, there's reference to principal challenges confronting the cruise tourism in Barbados. And it speaks to an aging and aesthetically limited port infrastructure, on competitive and on appealing shopping environment, limited number of tourism attractions, and the absence of new products. And it is important that we are constantly able to provide new attractions and new opportunities for our visitors to enjoy. And you know, sir, there are quite a number of activities in Barbados that we don't know about. And I note that the report as well makes reference to ensuring that you're able to make persons more aware, and I'm looking for the particular section here, but it was referenced in this report to ensuring that we are able to make persons more aware of what is happening with respect to experiences within Barbados. And I'm not seeing that particular area now with the report. But the point that I'm making, sir, is that we need new attractions. We need new activities. One of the comments sometimes made is that our overall product offering is a little tired. And I'm very happy to know that government is looking, for example, at some infrastructural development that will be taking place from Needham's Point right into to Bridgetown. And I believe that that will also bring with it some additional attractions and activities for visitors and locals to be able to enjoy. Of course, sir, the new attractions alone will not be it. Because if you are traveling from Bridgetown to, let us say, a Welshman Hall Gully, or you're traveling to the Animal Flower Cave, or you're traveling to Harson's Cave, for example, you have to drive on our roads. And we have to make sure that we are able to improve our infrastructure. So I wouldn't tell you of my disappointment with respect to the inaction that would have taken place, sir, between 2008 and 2018. I wouldn't say to you, sir, that this country has been set back significantly by a government that did not properly take consideration of the people of Barbados and their need to ensure that when they left office, that Barbados was a better place than when they first came. The reality is, sir, that the country is faced with significant challenges that would have occurred because, sir, there were persons essentially sleeping on the job. But, sir, I'm not going to reflect on that this morning. I'm going to speak, sir, to more positive things that are being undertaken. And as I think of that, I also recognize that there has been some improvement with respect to the road infrastructure. You know, sir, I came back to Barbados in November of 2016. For a 3-year period, I was in Grenada as CEO of the Grenada Tourism Authority. Sir, I did come to Barbados every month, though. I did not, no, I had some, of course, my interest here in Barbados, sir, and my commitment with Barbados. So I came back to Barbados every single month, but at least once a month. But when I came, sir, on those occasions, I saw continuously a deterioration in our road infrastructure. Thank God, sir, that is now being improved. And if you're going to look to truly take advantage of this important cruise tourism sector, then we have to make sure that we also enhance the infrastructure that is there as well. The government, sir, is focusing on smart technology, and that is important as well, because there's a segment of the market which utilizes these cell phones, which utilizes smart devices, who, when they come in at the port, the first thing they will look for is an app. The first thing they will look for is to make sure that there is Wi-Fi. In fact, last night I was watching a show on Netflix, and this family from Cleveland or somewhere went to some other part of the USA to visit some families and some relatives. And when they got there, sir, the first question that the oldest, a teenager of about 14 years, asked was, "What is the Wi-Fi password?" And the grandfather said, "We don't have Wi-Fi." And she responded, "Is that all lowercase?" And he said, because she thought, sir, that was the password. We don't have Wi-Fi. And the grandfather had to explain that they really don't have Wi-Fi. And I only reflect on that to say that we have to make sure that we are able to be world class, and as we compete in a global environment, that we are able, sir, to utilize the new technologies. I'm happy, sir, that there was reference made, and I believe that the Prime Minister would have spoken to the old NIS building, the fact that that building will be removed from there and that there's going to be a recreational area. Because some of our visitors coming out of the cruise port actually walk out of the Bridgetown port. And there will be areas in which they can go and they can have, be able to relax. I should say to this chamber, sir, that while we talk about enhancing the infrastructure, that our businesses have to come on board. They have to get on board as well. It cannot be left only to government. Businesses have to get on board. I'm happy to tell you, sir, that the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, partnering with the Tourism Development Corporation, that we have, for example, provided new lighting in the St. Lawrence Gap area. I'm happy to tell you, sir, that we have provided CCTV cameras, sir. I'm happy to tell you that we have provided for the painting of zebra crossings. I believe that you may have seen at times where Ministry of Transport works and maintenance workers at night have sections cornered off of zebra crossings, and they're repainting them. And that is because we believe that we have a responsibility to assist with the infrastructural enhancement of our country. And therefore, I'm making the call, sir, that persons, businesses in Barbados also play their part in ensuring that we are able to provide a more welcoming and good experience for visitors and for Barbadians as well. I would not, sir, speak about the infrastructural development without touching very briefly on the issue of cleanliness. I believe, sir, that that is very important. I did inform this chamber before that the Sanitation Service Authority will be acquiring an additional 12 trucks. Those trucks will be here this year, provided, sir, that there are no challenges with respect to steel. And that is not steel. Between 2008 and 2018, were to use the word steel, persons would automatically think of Serenaderstown steel in there. I'm actually talking about real steel. These garbage collection trucks are actually purpose-built trucks. So what happens is that the chassis is developed in Japan, and it's then sent over to the USA where the truck is fully built. As I said, we'll be having 12 additional trucks. But I was happy, sir, before this Senate meeting started, I'm very happy, sir, that one of my colleagues, and I believe that all of the others present, sir, said yes and shake their head, that you know, there has been improvement in the collection of garbage. And I think I even see Senator Franklin nodding a little bit. I think so. I think I even see that there, sir. But the point is, sir, that we are ensuring that we have additional trucks. While there has been some improvement, we do recognize that more has to be done. We are trying to get those trucks here at the latest in October. That is the date that we are pushing for. But I have to tell you, sir, that a truck takes anywhere between 6, 7, 8 months to manufacture. But we are really pushing to get those trucks here, sir, earlier. You will also bear know, sir, that every single day, the Sanitation Service Authority sends out a notice to indicate where we are planning to collect garbage. But I have to tell you this, sir, that the estimated useful life of a truck is 7 years. We believe, sir, that in the context of Barbados, it is closer to 5 years, given the type of work that is being undertaken. But the international benchmark is 7 years. We have trucks, sir, operating 17 and 18 years. And the reality is that they have mechanical, electrical, and structural problems. And I have, sir, to say that the workers at the Sanitation Service Authority are doing a very good job. Of course, we have to continue with them some negotiations with respect to seeking to have the service of garbage collection provided 7 days a week, any 5 out of 7. But we will continue to engage in those talks with the relevant union. Mr. President, sir, I did indicate that I would make some reference to the Grantley Adams International Airport. As you know, there is a significant emphasis on home porting. Reference would have been made, sir, to the International Finance Corporation by, I believe, both the Minister of Tourism and the Prime Minister, indicating that private arm of the that is the private arm of the World Bank, sir, that they're looking to assist us in getting a private operator for the airport. The expectation is, sir, that given a lease of 25, 30 years, that the airport will be significantly enhanced. You know, Mr. President, I recently said that all of us have to do our part. We can't do things in the way that they would have been done before. In 2008, when the Barbados Labour Party left government, I would have been the parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. At that time, we had identified a new cargo facility at the airport as being critical and important. Mr. President, sir, a week ago, I had a discussion with some officials at the airport. And we were talking about the need for the development of a new cargo facility. And sir, I make reference to that because it is totally unacceptable. And we as a country cannot identify critical elements for improvement and then don't execute them. And I believe that going the route of having a private operator at the airport is very positive and good because it will enhance the overall infrastructure of the airport. My expectation would be, sir, that in the 25, 30 years that we, in addition to the new cargo facility, we will see passenger boarding bridges. We will see jet bridges. My expectation is, sir, that we will see additional parking positions. My expectation is, sir, that we will see an enhancement in terms of the actual terminals. You know, sir, the expansion of the Grantley Adams International Airport, which occurred in the early 2000s, you know, sir, that was first conceptualized and agreed to in the early 1990s. And it was only executed in the early 2000s. Sir, we cannot function like that. No longer can we take an entire decade to engage in actions which are required today. If we do that, sir, what will happen is that Barbados will find itself in a world left behind. And that must not be the case. We in this government, sir, we give a commitment to ensure that we will lift the standards here in Barbados. We give a commitment to ensure that we will not only provide for the infrastructural development and for the growth. Sir, I didn't see, oh, sir, no, I didn't. I saw the president do like this. I wasn't thinking. Well, sir, but I have not even gotten off page 1. Sir, but the truth is that I expect that the IFC working to bring that private entity to operate the Grantley Adams Airport will provide for significant expansion and development there. Sir, I'm going to touch very briefly on the cruise and stay. Only to say that I'm aware that the IFC recognizes that that is an area where there can be significant growth and potential. There's the opportunity, of course, with the expansion of the Grantley Adams International Airport for new concessionaires to come in. I was happy, sir, to hear the Minister of Tourism indicate that the small man who we refer to as the small man, will be given an opportunity at the airport. It will not just be about having the bigger, large concessionaires at the airport, but to give the ordinary Barbadian man and the ordinary Barbadian woman an opportunity to participate. I want to say, sir, that in doing that as well, I am happy that the Barbados Port Inc. has been able again, because it happened, sir, when I was Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, where the smaller operators, the taxi operators in the port, were able to go to the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association conference, the FCCA, and be there and be able to speak with the cruise directors and to have an input and to be able to speak with them so as to enhance their business. And again, the Barbados Port Inc. has now been taking the representatives of the association to the FCCA conference. And I think, sir, that is important. As we speak, sir, to the issue of cruise tourism, let us also recognize that government has given the commitment for a new cruise pier in Spikestown. And what does that do, sir? That provides an opportunity for economic activity to take place in Spikestown. That provides an opportunity for our visitors to see firsthand and to be knowledgeable with respect to the history of Spikestown. And what it does, sir, is it demonstrates that as a government, we want to ensure that we are able to expand and to provide opportunities for everyone. Sir, I will conclude by making reference to this fact. There is now a new X-ray machine in the port. And that new X-ray scanner in the port, that scanner, I am told, will be in operation within a matter of weeks. Sir, for me, it is disgraceful, sir. It really is disgraceful that there was a situation existing in Barbados where the equipment was not provided to the Bridgetown port and was not provided to the authorities to adequately carry out their functions. Sir, you know, a critical element in relation to tourism is security. And we have to ensure that we do not in any way compromise the security and put at jeopardy a very important industry. Sir, I close with that, only to demonstrate that this is not a government of talk, but that this is a government of action. And I give you the assurance, sir, that I have every confidence that the committee's report will be given the necessary action by this government so as to ensure that we improve Barbados, not simply for the visitors, but for Barbadians as well. I'm obliged to you.
Suspend for 75 minutes.
Mr.
45.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this sitting be now suspended until 2:45.
The question is that the sitting of the Senate be now suspended for the next 75 minutes until 2:45. Honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Take the ayes have it, and we are now at lunch.
Listen. You sure, sir? I didn't